4, 3, 2, 1. Good to go.
Well, another Friday night, and a mask. I thought I finished all the patients nice and early today, but got a couple more calls afterwards. And one of the things is that I know sometimes I'm getting a little bit tenser. I'm getting more angry easier. So my wife noticed that. I'm noticing that, and I don't mean to get tense sometimes. So I got to figure out how Hannah's going to help us and her team. Is how do we change that a little bit? Hannah, what are you going to tell us tonight?
Perfect. Hi everyone, my name's Hannah. I lead the Mindfulness and Wellbeing Club, and today I'm joined by Hafsa, Russell, Ted, and hopefully Jessalyn if she comes in a bit later. And we're going to be talking today about managing well-being at home. I know it's been quite a couple months now since we've kind of had to stay at home most of the time and kind of limit our outing. And I know for me that's been difficult because I'm back at home and not in Hamilton. And like Dr. Kearney was saying, I think it's much easier to get frustrated and angry when you're spending so much time with the same people. But hopefully you enjoy our webinar today. We're going to be talking about managing well-being and also finding motivation during this difficult time and finding ways to motivate us and encourage us to keep pushing on during these tough times. Yeah. Next slide, please. So first, I'm just going to talk about all the things that have been going on for the last couple of months. Obviously, I don't need to say too much about it because we are all so deeply impacted by all the various aspects that have been affected in our lives. But just to touch upon it, what?
You know, it's interesting. If you go back and see, we're blaming COVID on everything, but it could be job challenges, weight management, illnesses. So COVID just is amplified some of the issues there. So I don't want just to be a COVID issue. This is a everything issue. It's just stress at this point in time, but when someone gives you a lemon, what do? You make lemonade. So we're making some lemonade tonight.
Perfect. So as we all know, we've seen, a continual change in the cases of COVID. I know back in March, I think I posted a video back then as well, or in May. And that was when we were saying that the cases were going down. And now we're, at first it was speculation, but I think we're well into our way into the second wave of COVID. So definitely please make sure you're being careful, wearing your mask, sanitizing, commonly touched surfaces, and just being careful in general. You never know. I mean, the virus, it's very hard to tell who has and who doesn't. So definitely best to err on the side of caution whenever you are going out. The next slide, please. And I know most of our patients are situated in Hamilton as well as across Ontario. But in general, I don't have to say these specific numbers, but I think we did not anticipate that we'd be at this stage now, a year ago. I don't think none of us really thought that this could happen in the next year, and here we are. And I think it's really important to recognize that it is a difficult time. So if you are feeling anxious and nervous about the outcome and the future and what's going to be happening in the next couple years, during and after this pandemic, please know that is completely natural. I feel that as well. I think all of us do. And we're also going to be touching upon in here how to manage negative emotions, why it's important to acknowledge them and not just ignore them. But we're going to be touching upon that a little later in the webinar. Next slide, please. So as Dr. Kearney was mentioning earlier, I think he brings a really good point, is that COVID... for a second. Sorry, I got confused. So I think, as Dr. Kearney was saying, COVID isn't really I don't think necessarily the root of our problems. I think for a lot of the things that we're going through, it's rather, I think, as Dr. Kearney said, it's amplifying them. So, the negative emotions we might have been feeling pre-pandemic, obviously in social isolation and going through this experience, it can definitely amplify those negative emotions. And it's all a matter of perspective and looking at, I guess, your situation in a way that is going to help you kind of manage anxiety and manage your well-being in the best way possible. But as we know, life has changed definitely a lot, both financially and socially and financially speaking. We've seen a lot of people either go through temporary or permanent job loss, especially people who are working with like in international trade or international business. Any flight companies, travel agencies, we've seen a drastic decrease in flights themselves. I think there's very little people who would have been impacted by, the financial impact all across the world. We've also seen a lot of cancellations of significant sporting events, sporting seasons, so like the Olympics, for example. We're all going to be postponing that until, the coast is clear and it's safe for people to be gathering again. And as well, we saw that we had the travel ban and just minimizing flights in general to protect each other. And I'm sure that before the pandemic, I think most of us were hoping to get away for a while, or at least some of us were hoping to get away to see family across the world somewhere. I think my family was planning to go to the States to see my grandmother, and those plans kind of fell apart when the pandemic happened, so it's definitely been a difficult time in that sense. Being able to connect with family and seeing and just being around people, I think that's one of the difficult things about this pandemic is we're constantly told to not see each other, just to be careful, when a lot of us really benefit from that social interaction. And finally, during quarantine, it was just that time where I think a lot of us kind of experienced really low lows because of the isolation. Next slide, please. And just as I've iterated the social impact of the pandemic, we've seen a lot of polls and surveys kind of take place by researchers across the country. So national-wide, we've seen an increase in mental health crises in terms of anxiety, in terms of depression, and that comes in the form of, having difficulty sleeping, having difficulty eating, those I think illnesses or like mental disorders, they come in the form of symptoms that sometimes you don't recognize that it's anxiety or that it's depression. And I think it's really important to recognize how you're feeling and recognizing what you need as well. And I think Aisha, for this slide, she also wanted to hint at the fact that it's made a really big impact on college students as well. A lot of college students have had reduced financial aid, either from the government or from their parents, or caregivers, obviously because of the impact it's had on all families during the pandemic. And it's just, I think the pandemic has really caused a lot of, I guess, it's brought a lot of issues to the forefront. And I think hopefully during this webinar, we'll be learning about ways we can manage those emotions and be more motivated. And I think the next slide, we're going to have Jesslyn talk about motivation and what it is and why it matters.
Hi. So on the next slide, we're going to talk a bit about what motivation is. So motivation is what initiates and guides and maintains goal-oriented actions. So you can see it as the why behind why we do things. So the next slide would talk about more like the types of motivation. So there's two types of motivation mainly, and there's extrinsic motivation, which arises from the outside world, and they involve rewards such as trophies, money, and praise. So this involves like when we do things for external rewards. It could be like exercising to lose weight and to see numbers go down, or things like that, versus intrinsic motivation, which arises from within the individual and involves doing things purely for personal gratification. This can be like exercising because of the endorphins and how it makes you feel afterwards. So the difference between these two is that extrinsic motivation is easier to pinpoint, so you can easily see the external motivations in your life. And when you feel like you're losing motivation for a certain goal, it's easier to look towards the external rewards as a quick way to recommit to your task or goals. But in intrinsic motivation, studies have shown that these are stronger than extrinsic motivations in helping a person achieve their long-term goals. So a study was done with 10,000 cadets, and they found that cadets with more internal motives were 20% more likely to make it through training, and cadets with mostly external motives had a 10% lower chance of sticking with a military career for their whole life, and a 20% lower chance of being promoted early. So it's knowing this, I encourage people to, dig deep and reflect on their life to find more internal motives, because these can help you achieve long-term goals that are long-lasting, and it's pretty much better than external motives. So, for example, like if you think like you have a job and you think you don't quite like your job because you don't like, let's say you're a salesperson and you don't like the product you're selling, and you think you're only doing it because you want to put food on the table for the money, that would be an external motive. But if you look back and you reflect and you think that, oh, I like how the customers look when they receive the product, even though I don't care much about the product, and it makes me feel happy and helpful that I'm like spreading happiness to my customers, then that's an internal motive that will help you be more motivated and committed to your job. So that's something to think about. And then for the next slide, we're going to talk more about why knowing where your motivations come from matters. So a desire to accomplish things is often not enough, and achieving a goal requires motivation, which gives you the ability to persist through obstacles. So you keep going despite facing difficulties. And it is important to understand how your motivations and how they work, as it helps many aspects of your life. Like understanding what drives you can help improve your efficiency when moving towards your goals, and it helps with commitment. It can help you take action in the first place, and it can also encourage you to engage in health-oriented behaviors and to avoid unhealthy lifestyles and actions. And also understanding what inspires you can help you find more control in your life and improve overall well-being and happiness. And that's about it for motivation.
Okay, so now that we've heard a bit about motivation, I'm going to get into how our motivation has been impacted by the pandemic and what we can do to stay productive. So how does motivation, next slide. So how exactly does motivation drive action and productivity? So like Hannah mentioned previously, Jasmine mentioned, motivation triggers action and helps keep it on course. So the greater motivation a person has, the more effort they'll put into consistently working towards their goals. So now, how has COVID-19 impacted our productivity? So like Hannah mentioned, COVID-19 has changed our entire lifestyles in every way, including financially, socially, etc. This has had an impact on every part of our daily lives and has forced us to stop doing a lot of the things that we would have been doing. In fact, research conducted at Stanford University has shown a reduction in productivity ever since the pandemic began. But just because our lives have changed, that doesn't necessarily mean that we can't be productive in the middle of this pandemic. So for a lot of people, the pandemic has given them the opportunity to work on their hobbies, learn a new language, or start the side hustle that they've been planning for years. But it's not always easy to be productive, and sometimes you just need that initial push. So I'm going to get into how we can try to work towards our goals during this pandemic.
So
next slide, please.
It's kind of interesting. If you just pause on that slide, is that so today it's going to be COVID. Next week it's going to be the economy. Next week it's going to be a political situation. Then it's going to be a natural disaster. It's going to be an illness. So to me, try to think of COVID as a way of using it to be just one more way of learning about yourself and how to use it as a stepping stone to move forward. Because COVID is going to go away at some point in time. It's not going to go away as quick as most of us want to, but it's going to be replaced by something else. and it's part of resilience. It's part of just thinking as that, COVID has brought us closer together as a team. COVID has allowed us to work differently and try new technology. So I would never thought I would be on a Friday night working with this wonderful team, giving a webinar, watching the success of these young people deliver good health to you. And so just think of ways that there's, like you said, is that new hobbies, new techniques, new anything, and just find ways to move forwards about this. One of the things that I've learned is that most of us have about 80,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are unpleasant. So I'm grateful that we have the opportunity tonight to just share some thoughts and making this more positive in some way. And fire away. I'm here. I'm looking forward to the next slide.
Yes, thank you for that, Dr. Kernew. So I'm going to be introducing a technique aimed at setting better goals and working towards them. So this is called the SMART approach to goal setting. So the S stands for specific. You should try to define your goals as much as possible. This means answering the 5 W's, so who is involved, what do you want to accomplish, where will it be done, and why are you doing this? So the M stands for measurable. You should try to figure out a way to track your progress and measure the outcome to see if you're improving or working towards it. The A stands for achievable. So is your goal genuinely reachable? And your goal should be challenging but also achievable. And generally goals work best when they're not too easy but they're also not too difficult. The R stands for relevant, so that means that the goal should seem important and beneficial to you. And finally, the T stands for time-based. This means that you should set a deadline for when you expect to have reached your goal by. Generally, deadlines keep us motivated. So altogether, if you make sure that your goal fits all those requirements, you can be sure that you have set yourself a SMART goal. Next slide, please. So I'm going to be giving you guys an example to help you guys see what a SMART goal looks like. So let's say for myself that my long-term goal is to lose weight. Now I'm going to go through each step to make sure that this goal is SMART. So first off, let's start off by making this goal specific. So what exactly is it that I want to do? Well, let's say that I want to lose 20 kilograms by the end of this year. Next, let's make sure that the goal is measurable. How can I track my progress? Well, I can measure my progress by checking my weight each week to see the change. Okay, so now is the goal achievable? Well, yes, I can achieve this goal by doing at least 1 hour of cardio exercise daily at the gym, and this is something that is realistic for me. Now, is this goal relevant to me? Well, yes, it is relevant to me because it will help me become a healthier person. Finally, I need to set a deadline for this goal. Let's say it's currently January 2020 and I want to accomplish this goal by December, so I have exactly 12 months. So as you can see, now my goal is so much more specific and seems much more doable than just simply saying I want to lose weight. Next slide, please. So the next step to goal setting is to create a schedule for yourself. And by schedule, I mean creating a monthly, weekly, and even daily schedule so that you can make sure that you set aside time for yourself to work towards your goal each day. By creating a schedule, you can compel yourself to take action and also hold yourself accountable if you ever feel like you're falling behind. So going back to my example, here's how I would create a schedule for myself. Let's say I wake up at 7 a.m. and I have work at 9 a.m. I can set aside 1 hour to go to the gym from 7:30 to 8:30 each day. Now that I have set that time aside, I can make sure that whatever happens, I will be spending at least 1 hour each day working towards my goal. As you can see, I also scheduled a walk during my lunch break. So when you make a schedule, you'll find so much more time during the day to use to being productive that you probably wouldn't have even noticed if you hadn't made a schedule. Next slide, please. Okay, so now let's say it's March and COVID-19 has just been declared as a pandemic and now the quarantine has just started. So how can you reassess your goals during the pandemic? The first step is to revisit and reestablish your goals. This means I know that I still want to lose weight. Given the current situation of the pandemic, how can I change my actions to still be able to reach that goal? Well, since gyms are closed now, maybe I can still do 1 hour of cardio by going for a run outside. That way I can continue to work towards my goal even during the pandemic. So the second step is to make sure that you're recording your goals using tailored resources. So think about what method of recording your progress would work best for you. Personally, I would prefer to type it up, but if you would prefer to write it down, then do that to make sure that you can keep seeing your progress. Next, you should try to do research and create distinct and attainable tasks. Write down specific monthly, weekly, and daily goals to help keep yourself caught up. It's also really helpful to have an accountability partner or someone to help keep you on track. So when you tell someone about your goals and progress, that can keep you motivated. And finally, make sure to keep going. Whatever happens, just take it one day at a time. Accomplishing big goals is a marathon, not a sprint. So you should focus on your daily tasks one day at a time, and eventually you'll get there. I also wanted to mention a quote I came across by John Maxwell, who's an author. He said that change is inevitable and growth is optional. So life is filled with ups and downs, and we can see that more than ever with the pandemic. When you can't control what's happening around you, try to challenge yourself to control the way you respond to what's happening. And sometimes just taking that initial step can really be life-changing. Just take it one step at a time, persevere through the obstacles, and one day when you've achieved that marathon of a goal, you're going to look back at yourself at this time and you're going to be so proud. So that's it from me. I hope you guys benefited from that.
I love that. I love that quote. Change is inevitable. Growth is optional. We're growing.
Next slide, please, Doris. Okay, I don't know if you want to start this off, Dr. Cornew. Stuart and I weren't sure. Did you want to talk a little bit about this?
Well, to me, my goal is for everybody around me to be healthier and to make everybody better. And that I don't have a good explanation why I do what I do, because it's just important, and I just see so many people make bad choices. So, and we have to sort of put a prescription. So one of my prescriptions to you is, what are the pillars that find time for your health? Put the next slide there for something there, and what are some of the things that are important? So to me, is self-care is important, and my self-care is really one is exercise and activity. To me, I love eating, and I really enjoy exercising. So tonight is not, am I going to exercise? Am I going to actually do the stairs with Maria and Paul tonight? Or are we going to go play tennis with Dino? Are we going to play tennis tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock in the morning and have cold hands again before? And I'm going to go for a bike ride this weekend with a couple of the patients and also with some other people as well. So I find that exercise is a religion to me, and that's really my sense of well-being. And I thank my wife for this when she said one time is that you're staying, this pandemic where you're cooped up in the house, go outside. We live out in the country, go out in the woods somewhere. And so to me, being in nature, being in the woods, that's part of my prescription for well-being is exercise. Well, food, I love to eat, I love to be healthier. And I see Chad's on the line here, and Chad, you completed a vegetarian course, and I sort of was on your tails and learned a lot, and I love going shopping with you. I went to Costco's a couple, or maybe last Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago. He usually goes in and out. I was there for 3 hours, and I could have spent another couple hours there, and I had to borrow some money because I only had about $450, and I spent more than that. Chad, I owe you some money. Just remind me to pay you one of these days. So I enjoy that. And sleep has never been something that I had enough of, and I sleep less. For my stress management is that that's where I sometimes fall apart, and I get angry at people. I get angry at people because I just see them making bad choices, and I just want better choices for them. So I need to be quiet, listen more, and try to guide things more carefully. But when I see people make bad choices, it's hard for me to be quiet. Relationships, is that when you're in healthcare, you sacrifice a lot of relationships for learning and reading and learning about this, but you also have deeper connections. So to me is that I look at the healthcare providers that have given their lives to save others, and I'm still in the background, and I was at one time thinking I might be back in the hospital intensive care unit. Right now I'm grateful I don't have to be there, but if I need to be there, I'll be there. So put your prescription. So my prescription is, eating more plant-based eating and trying different diets. So I tried a keto diet. It helped decrease craving. Exercise and how to get more activity. What am I going to do this winter when it gets cold, when I can't play tennis and I can't go bike riding? Well, I have a winter suit for bike riding, and I'll have to do something about that. I need to improve on my relationships and stress management a little bit better, and I'm looking to learn that. One of my stress management that really helps me is feeling grateful, and so I'm grateful for the opportunity for everybody to spend together and share with others. So that's my prescription, and so everybody should do a prescription. And someone who says I don't have time, well, you have to decide what's important to you. I think I work as hard as most people, if not harder, and I still find the time to try to do what's important. Do I miss things? Absolutely. Am I grateful for the opportunity to serve? Yeah. And so find out your well-being prescriptions. That's mine. I don't know about yours, Hannah. What's your prescription, Hannah?
Mine? Could you go back, Stuart? I feel put on the spot. I think for me, I'm trying to think. I think definitely exercise. I am a university student staying at home with my family. And because I'm at home, I find that it's a lot harder to want to exercise because I feel like I already have enough work on my plate in front of my screen. And because all my classes are virtual, like I spend most of my day in front of the screen, and obviously the posture is not great. So I'm trying to work on it. I find that with exercise and just with a lot of these things, telling someone else or telling a friend about it really helps me. I find that like sharing with them about how I'm feeling about those goals really helps me stay accountable. And they also reach out to me and ask about how the goals are going. So I feel like I need to maintain those goals and continue like working on them. So definitely I think for me it'd be exercise and stress management and practicing self-care. Self-care especially, I think for anybody, even if you feel like you don't have any time left to spend for yourself, I think that's the most important time you should have in the week. I think we do a lot of good work taking care of others. Some of us might be caregivers for our spouses, for our children, which is lovely. I really respect that, but I also would imagine that it's very easy to experience exhaustion and burnout. And self-care is a practice that is supposed to help kind of fight against those feelings, those negative feelings. And once you work on your self-care, it's a lot easier to take care of other people because your own mental well-being feels so much better when you think of yourself as well as others. So could you go to the next slide?
One more thought. I'm here with Paul and Maria here, so show your faces. These are two young superstars here. These young people have made this clinic a much better place in so many ways. I feel grateful for their participation. One of the things that we learned from the Harvard 80-year study is relationships and quality relationships. So find what makes you tick and surround yourself with people that you can make better and that they can make you better. It's not about me making other people, or people are making me better. My job is to make other people better, and I gain so much for that. So these are two wonderful people here that are spending your Friday night along with yourself, Hannah, and others that made such a difference. And I want to thank you all. And so if everybody just did this, the world would be a better place. So I'll be quiet for just a little bit.
So as we were talking about, so Dr. Cornu and the rest of our team would love it if you could also spend some time and send us a goal that you'd like to work on, especially during the winter. I imagine that most of us will be cooped up at home and have limited ability to go outside and enjoy the nature just because we have such cold winters here. But I would love it if I could see some of the goals that you guys have while at home. Dr. Cornu has kind of brought in a bit of an incentive. You can use it. You can type to us the goal that you want to work on in this format. Stuart will have the hyperlink linked in the description box in this video once it's uploaded, I think. And you can send us your copy or a picture. Even if you wrote it by hand, you can just take a picture of it and send it to us through Dr. Kearney's email, which is drkearney232@gmail.com. And Dr. Kearney has been very nice enough to say that one lucky patient will win a free 30 Days to a Healthier You book. So I encourage all of you to send in your goals. I don't think it will take that long. If anything, we just want to see you putting in an effort to work on your lifestyle, and even just share with us, because I know it's definitely harder to maintain rapport with the patients now that everything is mostly done virtually. So yeah, I would definitely love to see some of your goals. And if you would be interested in receiving extra support or coaching from us, there's also a question in the prescription on the slide over here that just asks whether you'd be interested in that, and if so, to just provide your preferred form of contact, whether that be phone or email, so that we can contact you and we can give you some support if you'd like. Yeah. Dr. Pinch, did you have anything to add?
Don't be afraid to say I need some help. I have 100 people helping me, and I need 100 more, and 100 more to help everybody else. And so, is that it works so much better if you work together in some way. Now, some of us like being by themselves, and I see some people that are like hermits, and they like the pandemic because they can isolate themselves, and that's good for them. But for many of us, it's harder, and how to develop those relationships and how to nurture that, and not be afraid to ask for help. One of the mistakes I make is that I expect people to read my mind. Sometimes I don't know what's in my mind. I can't express the feelings as well as I can. But I can say this, is that most of us are happy to help people to be happier, to be better. And that's all you need to do. So write down some of the things that are most important to you. And if we can help in any way, let us help.
Perfect. Okay, I guess we'll move on to the next slide. So I'm just going to be talking about a little bit about just kind of the messages that have been sent out through social media and just in general. I find that during the past couple months during the pandemic, there's kind of been an emphasis on, getting things done. So like picking up a new hobby or skill, maybe learning a new language, getting the work done that you weren't able to do before the pandemic. And while I think that's great to have picked up, a couple of new skills while you're at home in isolation, I also find that I think it's very natural for some people to not feel like they want to get work done. I think a pandemic is considered a traumatic experience for a lot of people, and so naturally I think emphasizing just productivity can be quite harmful to some people who feel the emotional impacts of the pandemic. So I want to talk a little bit about productivity loss and kind of acknowledging that during the pandemic. Next slide, please. So yeah, just as I was saying, for quite a while when governments were initiating lockdown, we saw that we had so much more time on our hands because most of us were cooped up at home. A lot of businesses had to shut down, and we had the travel ban. And all of a sudden, we saw this increase in individuals who were expressing that they were experiencing a lot of inspiration and a lot of productivity. So one of the things that I was wondering was why do we feel that pressure to continue being productive, especially during a time where it can be often really high in emotion and quite tense? Next slide, please. And I came across this article where it was an interview conducted with a psychologist at U of T, Steve Jordan, and he gives a really great explanation as to why, psychologically speaking, we're so inclined to want to feel like we have to do something during the pandemic. So the fight or flight system, you may have heard of this before, but essentially what it is it's our body's physiological response to threat. So that could be a real threat, just as in this animation shown below, but it could also be a psychological or perceived threat. So it might be being worried before a presentation or being worried about work. So it could be in the form of a physical or mental threat, and the fight or flight system is designed to induce stress in us, and that stress is supposed to help us deal with these threats short term. Now the issue is when we use our fight or flight system for a prolonged amount of time. That's when it starts to become an unhealthy response. And given the change in our society over the past hundreds of years, we're no longer just worried about having an animal like kill us while we're in the woods. It's a lot more psychological. It's about work. It's about your productivity. It's about your family. There's a lot more, I think, social and emotional worries that we experience as human beings. And as a result, Dr. Jordan says that what he calls the do something system. So during the pandemic, we don't actually have anything tangible, or at least tangible to fight necessarily. We know that there's a virus going around, but we can't necessarily fight it. We can't necessarily stop it ourselves. And we also don't have the ability to necessarily flee, but more so hide. And those feelings of, potentially feeling kind of unable to do anything in regards to that issue is the reason why we continuously feel like we have to compensate for those feelings and feel the need to accomplish something. And as a result, I think that that's caused, that spike in messages about being productive and making sure that you're getting things done during the pandemic. Next slide. But as we know, and I think we say this in every mindfulness webinar, prolonged stress is not good for your body, and it's also not good for your mind. Physically speaking, prolonged stress can weaken your immune system and make you more susceptible to illness. It can increase the stress hormones that are being released into your bloodstream, and that can increase your heart rate and blood pressure long term. It can also cause digestive problems and trouble sleeping, and that's all due to something in our minds, which I think sometimes it's crazy about how something in our mind can cause such damaging physical effects on our body. But I think that's why it's so much more important to manage our stress and keep it in check, especially during this time. And mental health, of course, stress is going to affect how we're feeling. It can put us at risk for anxiety and depression. It can impair our memory and concentration. And I think implicitly it can also cause us to feel burnt out and less motivated as well. Next slide, please. So I think what I'm trying to get at here is just to remind everyone, you don't always have to be maximizing productivity. Of course, it's great to have things, to check things off your list and get things done. But I think with that said, we are living through a pandemic, which can be an emotional and traumatic experience, and a lot can feel out of our control. We've been told to stay at home, and that is something that we can control, but a lot of the external factors that are affecting how we're feeling are typically out of our control, and that can make us want to accomplish things in order to compensate for that. But the more you work continuously to compensate for that feeling, it can cause you to feel less motivated and more overwhelmed, if anything. Next slide. So what to remember about productivity. So I encourage all of you to use productivity as a way to relieve stress rather than create stress. I feel like this also speaks to me and probably a lot of students, I'd imagine, as well. But I think sometimes we associate productivity with, it's almost like a chore. Like we feel like we have a lot of obligations to fulfill, and once we fulfill those obligations, we've achieved a lot of productivity. But I think sometimes activities don't always have to be about achieving goals. Productive activities can also be productive distractions. I think any or most activities can also be considered being productive because you're still doing something, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be about achieving those goals. And the only definition of productivity that matters is yours, and it's all about how much strain you put on yourself, about the goals and the tasks that you have to fulfill. So I really encourage you to assess whether you are putting enough pressure on yourself without making you feel overwhelmed, because the more we feel overwhelmed, the more damaging that will be to our mental health. And as I'll talk about later as well, self-care here is really important, and taking care of your mental health is just as important as taking care of your physical health. And finally, it's all about how we frame our thoughts. So I said earlier, a lot of the things that are affecting us right now may feel more out of our control than within it. And I think how we frame our thoughts, it really can change the way we look at our circumstances. So, for example, ask the question to yourself: what do we have control of? We have control of what we'll be doing day to day, who we'll be talking to, so our relationships and the depth of our relationships, even while we're separated and long distance, like communicating. And I think when you take into account those things that you do have control of, it's a lot more easier to recognize the things that you can change yourself and the things that you can do to make yourself happier and more motivated during this time. Perfect. And now we're going to have Ted talk about mindfulness and its relationship to motivation, as well as studies that have kind of investigated that relationship.
Right. So what are some methods that we can sort of employ in our daily lives to deal with the stress, be productive, and also sort of find motivation in our lives when it is at a time where it is a bit more sort of harder to do so? So next slide, please. So what is mindfulness? So mindfulness is sort of the practice of maintaining moment-by-moment awareness of yourself. So that includes thoughts, feelings, sensations, and also sort of your surrounding environment. And what it does is sort of it grounds you in reality, and it's sort of makes it possible for you to acknowledge your current state, and also sort of help you realize what is going on, and allows you to approach problems or situations with a clear mind. So it's important to note that when you're practicing mindfulness, to be sort of non-judgmental as much as you can be, and sort of go with the flow. So sort of a good graphic that sort of represents mindfulness is on the left side, where there's two pictures. There's one where it's raining, and then there's another where it is raining also, but the person sort of has a lot more thoughts, is questioning why it's raining. Oh, he doesn't like rain. He or she doesn't like rain. He or she thinks that raining is going to ruin his day or her day. So the difference is that one side is sort of just accepting rain as it is and sort of approaching the situation with a clear mind so that they can sort of deal with this certain scenario, while the other is sort of going off reactionary thoughts, and by doing so could sort of cloud their judgment. So by practicing mindfulness, various health benefits can sort of be taken through practicing mindfulness. So this includes physical health. So some studies have shown that practicing mindfulness can lower blood pressure and sort of reduce chronic pain, as well as relieve stress. And also practicing mindfulness also can improve mental health. So it has sort of a lot of benefits towards, for example, sort of curing depression or sort of resolving substance abuse issues. So next slide. So what do we know about mindfulness and its effects on motivation? So in one study conducted by Dr. Haffenbrack, in the study he has two groups of participants. One group does meditation for 15 minutes, which is practicing mindfulness, and then the other group sort of does whatever activity they want to do. So for example, sort of reading a newspaper or maybe doing a crossword. And then after those 15 minutes are up, both groups go ahead and do a task, such as reading a cover letter. And what this doctor found was that in the group that practiced mindfulness, so the group that meditated, they actually had sort of less motivation to do this external task that was put on them, and when compared to other group of people. And so his conclusion was that sort of mindfulness reduced motivation in a certain sense. So it's important to note that in both groups, they both did their task sort of equally. They both did them pretty well. So there was no difference in the groups in whether or not they did the task bad or well or not. And basically what the doctor found was that when you practice mindfulness, you sort of have less incentive to follow external motivation, which in this sense is that it's an external task put on them by sort of the researcher and not exactly something that they want to do or something that very much interests them. So what this shows is that mindfulness sort of helps you understand your current situation and sort of accept it for what it is. You might not necessarily like it that much, but mindfulness helps you sort of accept the situation and find peace in doing so. And in doing so, it relieves stress. So following sort of this study, there was another sort of larger study that looked at 89 mindfulness and motivation-related studies. And when they looked into these 89 mindfulness and motivation studies, they found that overall, all these studies showed that there was a boost in sort of internal motivation, or what they call autonomous motivation, which is basically your motivation that's driven by yourself. So, for example, something you're passionate about or something that you like doing, as opposed to controlled or external motivation, which includes sort of like, if you complete this task, you get a certain amount of money, or maybe you're doing a task in order to please somebody else. So what this shows is that when people practice mindfulness, it makes them clear about sort of their own goals, their own wants, and their needs, and improves sort of their internal motivation, which I think is, in many aspects, better for a person's physical and mental health than being motivated solely by external things such as money. Next slide. Right, so mindfulness is great in sort of improving internal motivation and sort of acknowledging your current circumstance and sort of approaching problems and situations with a clear mind. But it's important to take away that it's not a magic pill. So practicing mindfulness, for example, through meditation, meditation can look different for every person. And it's inevitable that sort of self-adjustments for each separate person will need to be taken. So it's also important to note that sort of when you practice mindfulness, that it will definitely take sort of a period of time and also experience to sort of perfect doing activities that practice mindfulness, such as meditation. And oftentimes it works better if it's practiced consistently over a long period of time than sort of over a short period of time. Next slide. So some mindfulness exercises, the most sort of common mindfulness exercise are meditations. And on the slide, you can see that there's 4 sort of listed. The first being mindfulness, which is basically being centered around sort of being in the present and sort of letting your mind wander to things you did in the past or worrying about things in the future. A body scan is sort of when you go from one end of the body and to the other and sort of acknowledging sort of sensations and tensions that you have in your body and sort of just being aware of them and accepting them. The third is sort of loving and kindness, which is basically bringing forth sort of thoughts of love, kindness, and thankfulness to not only yourself, but also others. And also breath awareness, where you pay attention to your breath and sort of it helps clear what you need to be focused on. Next slide. So some common sort of meditation apps or programs that are used widely are shown sort of on the slide there. I personally sort of have used Headspace, and I found it, really helpful in sort of refocusing my thoughts and efforts onto sort of a task, and also sort of clearing my mind of all the different thoughts that I sometimes have in the day. Sort of it declutters it and sort of makes it easier for me to focus on my current situation or task that I need to get done. Next slide. Right, and so although there are a lot of sort of health benefits with practicing mindfulness and meditating, there's several things to sort of keep in mind when you're doing so. So the apps that were just shown and any other programs that you could find online, it's important to note that sort of not many of mindfulness apps are sort of built on scientific data. And sort of in this age where companies are trying to take advantage of consumers by sort of marketing the latest fad trends, it's important to sort of understand what you're getting into and why you're getting into it. So there's sort of like a 5-step checklist that needs to be considered when you're sort of consuming or using an app dedicated towards practicing mindfulness. So the first is, why are you using this mindfulness exercise tool? So to sort of clearly state what you're trying to get out of it. And the second question sort of leads into it. The third is that after a period of time, it's important to reflect and see if it is helpful to you. And if it's not, potentially maybe trying some sort of a new technique or another app. And the fourth is sort of to check the research that is behind the claims that the app is making. So for example, if the app is claiming that this package costing $4.99 will help make your depression less severe, it's important to sort of check why they're making this claim and if it is actually backed by evidence or research. Checklist is to make sure that you're not sort of solely relying on this app to sort of be your main method of finding motivation. I think mindfulness is something that's great to supplement trying to find motivation and be more productive, but it definitely shouldn't be sort of the main thing that you should be focused on.
Perfect. Thanks, Ted. And now I think for the last section, we're just going to be talking about a couple tips that like my team has about regaining motivation and finding motivation during this time in a healthy manner. Next slide, please. So earlier we talked about SMART goals. So the first tip is starting small and staying calm. So remember when we were talking about SMART goals, we'd like our goals to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So if you have a bigger goal that you want to achieve, breaking them up into smaller ones is going to make it feel much more manageable and more enjoyable as well, because it feels like you're getting a lot more done because there's several goals to get through. So I think breaking them up into smaller tasks and also breaking them up into smaller time intervals will help you continue to work towards that long-term goal. Next slide, please. So some of the general tips that we have within goal setting is to take it step by step. So make sure to plan small and specific goals. And 2 and 3 kind of go together, so don't do it alone and make your goals known. Use your support system, and if you're in need of help, ask the people around you, family, friends, anyone who you really rely on with their opinion and their support. Make sure to reach out to them if you're struggling with setting goals or achieving them. I find that it really helps with keeping you motivated, especially if you have someone who's willing to share that goal with you. So they'll try to work on that goal with you, and that will keep both of you accountable. And also, it'll be a good experience for the both of you, and it'll be a great memory to look back on, I think, as well. Number 4 is to track and share your progress if you feel comfortable. I feel that looking through that journey, especially if it's something like changing your lifestyle, that's a very big goal to achieve. And I think looking back at the difference between your old habits and your new ones can really encourage you to keep maintaining the good, healthy habits that you have, and tracking and sharing that progress with your family and friends will also receive a lot of support and encouragement to continue moving forward with those good habits. And number 5 is to stay positive. Whenever you're trying to achieve goals, I think believing in yourself is one of the most important things you can do for yourself to propel yourself forward and achieve those goals. And something on the bottom here that I think Aisha wanted to mention was to acknowledge the fact that you might not finish your goal when you want to, or that like you initially wanted to or planned, and that is okay. We're living through a pandemic. You getting the motivation to plan goals and to go out to set and work on those goals is, I think, a really great thing in itself. So don't undermine that motivation and that desire to work on your health, on a healthy lifestyle. Just do your best and continue just working on yourself and finding ways to make yourself healthier and happier. Next slide. I think Justin will take over.
So another way to kind of regain motivation and manage your overall well-being would be to seek out social support. So what social support can be defined as is the experience of being valued, respected, cared about, and loved by others who are present in your life. and this has a huge impact on your quality of life, your achievements, and your overall health. And so there's four basic types of social support. We have instrumental support, which are just tangible kind of actions or forms of assistance, and this can include like finding someone to help you with your responsibilities if you feel like you have too many that you can handle at the present moment, or people lending you money if you need help, things like that you can measure. And then we also have informational support, which includes offering advice and information. So when someone provides a suggestion on how to overcome an obstacle in your life, that's informational support. And then we also have emotional support, which are expressions of love, empathy, and trust. So having a friend to reach out to at the end of a bad day or hugging a loved one is all considered emotional support. And then we have appraisal support, which comes in the form of confidence building and encouragement. And it often comes from friends or families reminding you of your good qualities, so the things you're succeeding at in life, staying positive, things like that. And a blend of these types of supports would lead to a lot of benefits for the individual. So it's important to kind of seek out these aspects of support in your life and build your social support network. Next slide, please. So just to go over briefly the benefits of having a strong social support network, it can improve your ability to deal with stress. So as Hannah mentioned before, like prolonged stress response in our systems is quite damaging to our health. It can increase our blood pressure, our heart rate, and it's just it's not good for your maintaining your overall health in the long run. So by having social support, you can improve your ability to deal with the stress, and thus kind of lower your risk of cardiovascular disease or improve other health outcomes after illness or injury. It can also increase your lifespan, and it's also good for your mental health. It makes you less likely to have depressive symptoms, and it increases your self-esteem. So these benefits are backed up by various studies. So there was one done with over 300 young adults, and they found that their perceived social support was most effective in reducing depressive symptoms as compared to their self-esteem or sleep quality. So having a good social network was the most beneficial for them in maintaining a healthy mental health. And according to the American Institution of Stress, emotional support reduces the usual sharp rise in blood pressure and increased secretion of damaging stress hormones that happen when one is stressed. So these all back up like the benefits that having a good social support network can give you. And in the next slide, we talk about ways that you can kind of manage or seek support. The first one would be to reach out. So stay in touch with your friends and family. Tell them how you're feeling if you're having trouble. And there's a lot of ways to connect with them, even during the pandemic. So you can connect online through phone calls, video calling platforms like Skype, FaceTime, or Zoom, or even email them. Especially during this time where we're cooped up at home a lot of the time, it's important to connect and stay in touch with your friends. And you can also listen. So the social support is a two-way street. So you should also try to reach out to your friends and learn what's going on in their lives to kind of gain their support. And they will be, by listening to them, they'll be more inclined to do the same for you when you need it. And you can also join groups. So if you don't have any family or friends close by that you can reach, or you would want to seek more support from other new people, you can form new relationships by taking an online class, for example. And the benefit of this is through an online class, you can find like-minded individuals, and you can keep each other accountable, tell them about your goals, and share your goals with each other, and you can help each other get through your goals. And the fourth way to kind of seek support and grow your network would be to provide social support for someone else. So as I said, it's a two-way street. So to be become a part of someone else's social support network. So see if your friends and family are also struggling during this time. Reach out to them, talk to them, and be there for them if they're going through something. And those are just some of my suggestions.
Yeah, and so another tip on regaining motivation is to just reassess your negative thinking. As mentioned a lot in this webinar, we are treading in uncharted territory in situations that have brought us many situations of frustration, helplessness, and insecurity. And we just want you to know that these feelings are normal and natural. However, how can this impact you? Are normal and natural. However, how can this impact you on motivation? Well, actually, negative thinking and motivation kind of affect each other. So, for example, if you were to have a pessimistic view on the outlook of your life, you may have lower motivation. And if you were to have lower motivation, you may feel guilty, upset, or angry about your lack of productivity. So, that being said, how can you manage these negative emotions on a daily basis? Next slide, please. So, we have some tips for you to manage negative emotions. First of all, is to obviously talk about your emotions. Like what Jesslyn spoke about, we highly encourage you to reach out to your social network and just talk about your emotions. This can help you understand them and also gain a different perspective from your family and friends. And also just don't underestimate your capabilities, and definitely reflect back to times when you have overcame a challenge. COVID-19 is presenting as a new challenge, but you have overcame many other obstacles in your life before this, and know that this is just another step in your journey. Also, organize your thoughts. It's very helpful to, I guess, think through what is currently bothering you, and then try to understand what you are able to resolve easily and how you can resolve the problem, as well as what can't you resolve and what can you do about that. Not every problem can be resolved, and that is completely normal. We also encourage to keep a gratitude journal. So this is basically a way of recording small events in your life and in your daily life where you felt appreciated, loved, or inspired. And this really helps you, I guess, gain a bigger perspective of the little things in your life that can bring positivity. And instead of focusing a lot on the negative aspects in your life, just do note that there are so many smaller positive moments in your life that you may have overlooked. And every day, just do an activity that makes you feel good. Everyone loves to look forward to the next day, and by doing an activity that makes you feel good, you kind of look forward for the next moment where you feel good again. And it's just a great motivator to keep your day going. And there are many different activities that may make someone feel good. So this is completely up to you. And then next slide. And as we mentioned, negative thinking is completely normal and natural, because negative emotions are a major part of reality. So just because you have to manage, we encourage you to manage your negative thinking, doesn't mean that you should completely neglect your emotions, because they are a big part of your life, and you should actually attend to those. And actually, seeing the downsides of matters can actually help you make better decisions. So negativity is not always a bad thing. And just take as much time as you need before making decisions. Ask all the questions you you need information on, get advice, your research, and see how you can combat your the issue in your life. And also know that not all problems can be solved and everything has limits, and not every question can be answered, but we make the best of the situation that we're presented with, and and see how that goes. And then, next slide, please. So I guess life is all about finding a balance between positivity and negativity, how to manage the negativity in your life. And very soon you would be able to kind of transform your thoughts and channel that negativity and trying to transform it into something positive. For example, a common thought during the pandemic may be that things will never be the same again. And this may evoke emotions of hopelessness, helplessness, frustration. But we want you to see a helpful alternative that although things may not be the same, you can use this as an opportunity for personal growth and develop an ability to adapt to changing circumstances. And COVID-19 does present like a unique situation for many to learn in this part of their life. And this transformation in thinking can kind of transform emotions of hopelessness into a sense of hope and allow you to gain a more positive outlook to the future. But obviously, before achieving this, you needed to identify your negative thoughts, which is very important before transforming that into something positive. And that's the end of the negativity section. Someone will take you through self.
Thanks, Russell. So we're almost done the presentation tonight. So I'm just going to be ending the presentation off with just a small discussion about self-care. So I know I said self-care a couple times during this presentation, which only emphasizes, I'm only trying to emphasize how important that is during any time, really. Even if we weren't going through a pandemic, I think self-care is one of the things that you should be practicing all the time, and at least for every week there should be a time that you allot for yourself to invest time in doing the things that make you happy and help you relax. I really like this graphic. I think I used it for our last month's webinar on social connection. It kind of highlights the different categories that you can put your self-care activities into. Some of us might have more activities in one category or another, but the point is that I think all of us have one activity, or at least a couple activities that fall into a couple of these categories. And I really encourage you to think about what kinds of categories you're practicing right now, what kinds of activities you're practicing right now would fit under the self-care categories, and trying to see whether you have a balance in the physical, the emotional, the social, perhaps the spiritual, personal, space, financial, and work, and seeing whether there is an area you want to work on, and if so, to think about perhaps an activity you can spend some time on to kind of work on that category. And I do want to emphasize here that it's still possible to be productive while practicing self-care. Like I said earlier in the webinar, I'm a firm believer that if you are doing something for yourself, that still counts as being productive, because that means that you're taking care of yourself, and you should always come first because it is your life. So I really encourage to make sure that you're spending enough time on yourself and making yourself the best that you can be. Next slide. This slide is also from our last one's webinar, but the WHO says that health is a state of complete physical well-being and mental well-being and social well-being. So it's the combination of the physical, mental, and social health that kind of come together and make up who we are and how we're feeling on the outside and on the inside. So I really encourage you to look at each of your parts of the well-being, so physical, mental, and social, and seeing whether you feel happy about each section, and if not, whether there are goals that you might want to achieve or plan out in the next coming year to work on them. Next slide. And so just in general, focus on you. Think about the activities that would benefit you right now. And also, I think it's important to think about whether there are any activities or perhaps even relationships in your life that are draining you of your energy and perhaps your motivation. And if so, to really look into those and see whether there's a way to work on them. And if not, to remove those negative activities in your life so that you are more free to do what makes you happy. And yeah, I thought this graphic was very cute. Just please take care of yourself during this time and during any time. I think that's the most important thing that you can do, whether that's for your physical health or your mental health. Next slide. So that concludes our webinar for today. Thank you so much for joining us. If you'd like to join us online, you can just look at our social platforms on the right here. And if you are still interested in sending us one of your goals and sending us your Wellbeing prescription, we'd love to see it. Please email a picture or an attached copy of it to Dr. Kearney's email. Thank you.
And Anna's created a series of webinars and events, and thank you so much. And the whole team did a wonderful job. And one of the things is sometimes writing things down, committing, and just reflecting is a good thing. So it's interesting is that we're all busy, but if it's 2 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, or even longer than that, start the day and be grateful for where you are and where you want to be. Think of ways to enrich your life and enrich those around you. To me, I hear about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation is that I get great joy when I see other people succeed, and I really enjoy these Friday night sessions. I always feel energized afterwards. I encourage people to go back and look at them again, to fast forward, replay, stop and start multiple parts of these sorts of things. And I'm just wondering if anybody else wants to make any comments from other than the group. Anybody on YouTube have any comments, or anybody want to make a comment or two about tonight's presentation and how it fits into their lives, and how you can just slow down the world a little bit. And one of the slides I kind of liked is that the person walking their dog, the dog sees all the trees and the bushes, where the person walking their mind is full of lots of things going on in their life. And I have to remind myself is to just go for a walk and not think too much and enjoy the birds, the moment, and if I wish that for everybody for 5 minutes a day or longer, that would be great. So please find the time to re-energize yourself. I feel more energized right now, and I look forward to either a game of tennis tonight. I know that the tennis lights go at 11:21. I know that for a fact, and or maybe we'll do the stairs, depending what the next two people around me want to do tonight. And but we'll do something. I'm grateful for their time. I'm grateful for everybody's time. Any comments from anybody? Stuart, what do you think? What are you going to take away from this?
Well, I was really looking forward to this presentation because I felt like the timing was just perfect. As we kind of introduced in the beginning, things are getting difficult again, but I really love the way you framed it, that right now it might be COVID-19, but COVID-19 compounds a number of other things that may be stressing us out, or it may cause a number of things that could be stressing us out. So I really enjoyed the presentation. I thought it was thoroughly well covered. I really did enjoy as well the section on finding time to enrich your life. I think we did a TED Talk, or we showed a TED Talk at some point where it said that if you had a flood in your basement or something, you would be able to find the time to manage that and still take care of all the other things you want to do in your life. So it's not always easy to find the time, but as long as you do the things that you enjoy, that's that's going to be the most benefit to you. So that's why we really wanted to advocate for this well-being prescription, because all these could be sleeping a little bit more. We all enjoy sleeping, exercising, doing it in a way that you enjoy. It could be running, it could be walking, it could be playing sports, and eating food as well. You can get creative with those types of things. Trying new recipes, watching some of our webinars, and we give you some great recipes as well. Trying different diets. I know Dr. Kernu's on the keto diet right now. I know Chad is a big advocate for the vegetarian diet. So trying a number of different things and seeing what works for you. I think that's a really good takeaway. And I, like you said, I feel a bit energized. I feel a bit enriched because my well-being goal is trying to sleep more. I'm pretty tired, so I feel pretty energized right now.
Nice. It's interesting. One of the clubs that's working very well is at Devachi. You got to give her great credit for having the Weight Loss Club. I enjoy those Zoom meetings on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock. Anybody wants to join, I'd love to have you participate. I like the fact that her and her team have helped people select SMART goals along the way. I've had a great summer because of these young people in our clinic that's really transformed this clinic, and you guys have done a wonderful job. I'm not sure Chad wants to tell us a little story about our Costco adventure or not, but next month we're going to try we're deciding to do either a vegetarian 30 days to healthier you, or maybe a soup. As winter comes, a soup feast for 30 days, and so we're going to try both of those at some point in time. We're going to try the Mediterranean diet for 30 days. We're going to try the DASH diet, but we're going to incorporate the things that your wellness prescription. And I thank everybody tonight. I'm just wondering, any comments from anybody out there?
Yeah, we have a few comments. No questions, just positive feedback. A lot of people saying great presentations, thoroughly enjoyed it, thanking us for delivering on this topic. Some people talking about some of the apps which we suggested. They were looking into them, and they said that they were great resources. Yeah, just a lot of appreciation for the topic and appreciation for the ideas. So thanking us for our hard work.
Well, listen, I think I'm going to bid everybody a good night. Thank you all. We're looking forward to other presentations. And one of the things is that we're trying to get a little bit shorter, and that's great. I know if Chad's on there. Chad, do you have a couple of words you want to say at all?
No, it was an amazing presentation, and these are the times that we really there's a lot of people feeling down in that, and I think everything that was presented this evening, it was very powerful. I really appreciate the different resources. I belong to CALM, but I also went to the Headspace when I saw it come up, and I've written down a few other ones like the Aura. So I'm going to check those out as well, and I do practice on the Calm site. So no, it's really important time during this COVID, because there are a lot of people feeling a little bit blue. The world is changing, and we need to get adjusted to it. So everybody, it was really nice, and I'm glad I sat here and I watched everything.
Well, special thanks to Chad, who's great at healthy cooking and a great motivated guy. He does so much for so many people. Thank you all for everybody tonight. I look forward to the future presentations. And we're all trying to get better. Today's COVID. Next week will be another obstacle, but we'll overcome those and grow from that. So thank you for letting me grow, and let's grow together. And until next time, good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. And we're good.
Hey, how did everybody think? Put your faces on, everybody.